I met Sienna in the most unremarkable way. I was leaving the dojo late one night, tired and stiff, and she was sitting on the curb outside the urgent care next door, rubbing her ankle and trying to flag down a cab. She waved me off when I offered help, but I stuck around anyway. That was just who I was. And something about the way she kept checking her phone, clearly trying not to cry, made it impossible for me to walk away. That was almost 2 years ago. Since then, everything about my life had quietly shifted. My name is Gavin. I'm 35, I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I run a martial arts studio I inherited from the man who raised me like a son. He passed away 5 years ago. No siblings, no parents, just the dojo and the life I'd carved out through discipline and sweat. I was proud of it. I had routine, structure, control, and then Sienna happened. She was chaos. The good kind, the kind that filled every corner of a room. A trauma nurse with a constantly buzzing phone and a family that overflowed from every direction. After about 6 months of dating, she took me to her parents' place for dinner. I wasn't ready for what I walked into. It was a tiny one-story house with a sagging porch and a grill that had definitely seen better days. Her dad, Pete, was retired from a factory job and still woke up at 5 every morning out of habit. Her mom, Lorraine, kept the place spotless and called everyone Han, and then there was Dylan, Sienna's younger brother who was trying to finish art school while working nights as a delivery driver. The place was loud. Everyone talked over each other. Dinner was late, and they were so damn close. I didn't know what to do with that at first, but Sienna was calm in the middle of it all. She passed plates, made sure Dylan got the last biscuit, reminded her dad about his medication, and still found time to rub my knee under the table when she thought no one was looking. I started helping out where I could. Quietly. A new battery for her mom's car. Paid for groceries a few times when I noticed Sienna skipping meals. Helped Dylan replace his busted tablet right before finals week, anonymously, through Sienna, who never questioned it. They didn't know I was doing it. I didn't want credit. I just didn't want her to carry it all alone. I knew that weight. I carried it too. One night, after her shift, she fell asleep on my couch in her scrubs, curled up like she hadn't let herself breathe in weeks. I sat beside her and held her hand until the sun came up. It hit me then. I wasn't just in love with her, I needed her. I needed all of it, the messy dinners, the cramped house, the unspoken worry under every smile. I needed to belong to something again. So I proposed. Not in some grand orchestrated way. Just one night, after dinner, in the kitchen with her sleeves rolled up and her hair pinned back. I took her hands and said, I want to be in this with you. All of it. She said yes with tears in her eyes and her hands in mine. I didn't just want to marry her. I wanted to carry the weight with her. And maybe, just maybe, I thought I'd finally found a family to belong to. The plan was simple, a few days in the mountains, just us and her family. Sienna had been talking about their annual spring break cabin trip since the start of February, and I'd made sure to block off the whole week at the dojo. It wasn't easy, my assistant instructor was already out with a torn ligament, but I figured it'd be worth it. It's always a little chaotic, she had warned me with a laugh. There's never enough hot water, and my dad snores like a tractor, but it's tradition. You'll love it. And I believed her. I started packing a week early, bought a new pair of hiking boots, stocked up on those protein bars her brother liked, even picked up a second-hand guitar from a pawn shop, thinking it might be nice to bring up to the porch in the evenings. I hadn't played in years, but something about the image stuck in my head. The morning of the trip, I was up early. Made her coffee, loaded the bags into the car, and even double-checked that we packed enough batteries for the cabin's finicky smoke detector. Everything felt right, until she came into the room holding her phone, biting her lip. Hey, she said softly. Can we talk for a sec? I turned from the trunk and saw it right away. That nervous look in her eyes. The one she got when she was about to say something she didn't want to say. My parents, she started, voice barely above a whisper. They kind of want this trip to just be family this year. My hands stopped mid-motion, still gripping the side of the car. Just family. She winced. It's not about you, Gavin. I swear. My dad's been weirdly nostalgic lately, talking about how this might be the last time Dylan's around for it, you know, before he graduates and all. He said it's nothing personal, just wants to keep it small. I let the words sink in. Nothing personal. Right? I nodded slowly. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Gavishi stepped forward. I didn't know how to bring it up. I wanted you to come. I told them that. It's fine, I said, forcing a small smile. You should go. Have fun. She hesitated like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She kissed me on the cheek, whispered a quick, I'll text you, and left with her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. I watched the taillights disappear down the street and stood there long after the car was gone. For the first time in a long while, I felt like the guy standing outside someone else's window watching a world I thought I belonged to close its door. I went back inside, sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at my half-packed bag. Hiking boots. Protein bars. That damn guitar. It hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't angry. Just empty. I'd done everything right. Quietly supported her family. Showed up. Stayed humble. But when it came to tradition, to belonging, I was still the add-on. The guest. The guy who didn't fit into the picture they were trying to frame. And suddenly, I didn't feel like part of it at all. I could have stayed home that week. Sat around in sweatpants, microwaved leftovers, and waited for her texts that would come too late, too short, and always end with, "Wish you were here." But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my duffel, left the boots and the guitar behind, and drove south until the city disappeared in the rearview. No GPS. Just instinct. I ended up in a nowhere town out near Taos. It was a place I used to go to before I met Sienna. There was an old motel there, low ceilings, hard pillows, humming pipes in the walls. It hadn't changed. Neither had the guy at the front desk who looked at me with a blank nod like I'd never been gone. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I just needed space. Not from her, exactly, but from what I'd let myself become around her. The invisible man holding everyone's weight. That first night, I hit a dusty trail at dusk with a flashlight and no plan. I walked for miles until the sky turned navy and the desert started whispering its secrets again. The silence was different out there, less empty, more honest. The next morning, I had breakfast at a diner where the coffee tasted like burnt toast and the waitress called me sugar without looking up. I sat in a cracked vinyl booth, watched a group of ranchers argue about weather patterns, and felt something loosen in my chest. Each day, I did a little more. Hiked a trail I hadn't seen in years. Spent an hour sketching the ridgeline in my journal like I used to. I bought a book from a gas station rack and read it cover to cover in one night. I ate greasy enchiladas and watched a thunderstorm from the back of my truck. And slowly, the ache inside me started to shift. I thought about Sienna. Not in the angry, bitter way I expected, but in flashes, her hand on the back of my neck when I was stressed. The way she always knew when Dylan was lying about skipping class. The way her mom hugged me too tight when no one was looking. I missed her. God, I missed her. But I also realized something I hadn't let myself admit. I hadn't been looking for love, not really. I'd been looking for a place to land. A seat at a table. A name in someone's story. And when her family welcomed me, I mistook utility for acceptance. They let me pay for things. Let me fix things. Let me fill the gaps. But they never let me in. I wasn't excluded from the trip because I'd done something wrong. I was excluded because they didn't see me as family, not when it came to tradition. And that hurt more than I wanted to admit. I stayed 4 days. No calls. No texts. When I left, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel healed. But I did feel steady. As I pulled out of town and hit the open road again, I caught myself humming an old tune I couldn't place. It felt like mine. And for now, that was enough. I got back late on a Thursday. The porch light was on and Sienna's car was already in the driveway. Inside, the house smelled like fabric softener and takeout. The TV was on low. She was curled up on the couch, blanket around her legs, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I came in. "Hey," she said, smiling like it had only been a regular workday. "You're back." I nodded, dropped my bag by the door, and sat on the armchair. My body still felt like it was buzzing from the road. I hadn't told her I was leaving. I figured if I wasn't welcome on the trip, then I wasn't obligated to explain my absence. She stretched and yawned. It was beautiful up there. There was still some snow, but the sun came out by Tuesday. Dad and Dylan went ice fishing and almost fell in. She laughed, shaking her head. Total disaster. I smiled politely, but it didn't reach my eyes. She didn't notice. We roasted marshmallows one night. Dylan burned his hand again. And Mom made the potato casserole you like. She said she'd save you some, but I think it got eaten. I said, glancing toward the kitchen. She kept talking like I hadn't been missing. Like I just skipped a dentist appointment or missed a movie night. Not like I'd been left out of the one thing she knew I was looking forward to for months. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Nodded when it made sense. Let her words fill the space between us like steam that would eventually fade. That night, in bed, she curled up beside me like nothing had shifted. I let her, but deep down something had. The next week, her dad called. Something about his barbershop's clippers malfunctioning, and could I help him source new equipment on the cheap? Normally, I would have been on it. I used to make things happen behind the scenes. Quietly. efficiently, but I let the call go to voicemail. Sienna mentioned it in passing the next day. My dad's been trying to fix the shop stuff himself. You know how he is. Stubborn. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Yeah, he'll figure it out. She looked up at me, puzzled. You okay? Fine, I said. Just tired. I started stepping back from everything, slowly, without fanfare. I muted the family group chat. Stopped offering to run errands. Let her brother figure out his financial aid papers on his own. No one said anything, but I noticed the small changes in her. She'd pause before asking me for help. Started doing things alone again. Sometimes she'd glance at me like she could feel the air had cooled between us. But she never asked why. And I wasn't going to explain. Not anymore. Because if they couldn't feel the weight of my absence, then maybe they never noticed the weight I'd been carrying all along. It was a Saturday morning when Sienna asked. She said it like it was nothing. Like I was still the guy who jumped in without hesitation. Hey, do you think you could help Dad replace the security system at the shop? She said, tying her hair back as she moved around the kitchen. The new one came in yesterday, but he can't get it installed right. It's one of those multi-camera setups. I told him you'd probably know what to do. I was standing by the sink, rinsing out my coffee mug. I didn't look at her. I'm not really family, remember? I said calmly. The silence that followed hit harder than I expected. She turned slowly, still holding the dish towel in her hand. What? I met her eyes. Your dad made it clear. That trip was for family. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For a few seconds, she just stood there like someone had pulled the rug out from under her and she hadn't figured out how to balance yet. That's not. You're taking this too far, she said finally, her voice quieter now. Am I? I asked. She shook her head, clearly struggling to catch up to the shift she hadn't seen coming. You've always helped him. You wanted to help him. I did, I said, when I felt like it meant something, when I thought I was part of this. Her expression flickered, something between confusion and hurt. You are. I gave a dry laugh. I was convenient, useful. But when it came to the part that actually mattered, tradition, closeness, shared memories, I was still outside the circle. I was the guy you thank for groceries, not the guy you invite into the photos. That's not true, she said, but there was no fight behind it. I just nodded and walked past her, dropping my mug gently in the sink. She stood there, towel still clutched in her hands, eyes wide like she didn't know who I was anymore. But I hadn't changed. I was just finally saying what I'd swallowed for too long. You could have told me, I said as I picked up my jacket, that they didn't want me there, before I cleared my schedule, before I packed a bag. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. I paused at the door. You did anyway. She didn't follow me, didn't chase. I left her standing there, trying to piece together how we got here. And for once, I didn't try to ease her discomfort. Because this space, this silence, this was the first time she had to sit in the weight of what I'd been carrying all along. The shift was quiet but steady. I didn't announce anything. I just started saying no. It began with Dylan, who texted me one afternoon asking if I could look over a pitch deck he was putting together for a scholarship contest. Normally, I would have stayed up half the night fixing the layout, coaching him through his wording, giving him the best version of what he was trying to say. This time, I typed, I think it'll be better if you get feedback from someone in your field. I'm not really part of that world. He sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else. 2 days later, Sienna's uncle, who had me saved in his phone as Gav Security, called to ask if I could help him review a weird lease addendum he got from his landlord. He left a voicemail saying, I know this probably isn't your thing, but you're the guy who always knows what to do. I didn't respond. Just let it expire. Then it was Sienna's mom, who called and left one of her gentle, guilt-laced messages. Something about a friend of hers who had questions about setting up a self-defense class for a women's group at the church, and maybe I'd be willing to do it pro bono as a favor. I could hear Sienna's name come up in the background, just a muffled "Ask Gavin," and something in me locked up. I texted her back, I'm not offering that kind of help right now. Hope it goes well though. She never replied. Every time one of them reached out, I felt that old impulse, step in, smooth things over, make life easier. But I didn't. Not anymore. Sienna noticed. She didn't say anything at first, just watched as I stepped further and further away. She used to lean on me for everything, figuring out her brother's FAFSA, replacing a tire without calling roadside, picking up groceries when her mom forgot. I used to do it all before she even asked. But now I let her ask. And when she did, I'd pause, then say, that's not really my place anymore. The first time she really pushed was when Dylan missed a registration deadline. We were sitting on the couch and she slammed her phone down harder than necessary. He missed it. I reminded him twice and he still forgot, she said, rubbing her temples. You always reminded him before. I kept my eyes on the TV. I don't do that anymore. She turned her head toward me slowly. Seriously? You're punishing everyone just because of one decision? I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. Wow, she said, standing up. I cannot believe you're doing this out of spite. Still, I said nothing. She walked out of the room and the door to our bedroom shut a little harder than usual behind her. I didn't follow. I just sat there watching a rerun of a show I didn't care about, the sound turned down low. She thought I was punishing them, that I was holding a grudge. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just clear. I had always been the quiet support beam, strong, steady, invisible. And now that I'd stepped back, they weren't panicking because I was mad. They were panicking because they realized they'd never once checked if I needed support too. And I was done being the only one holding it all up. It was a Sunday afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something told me to pick up. Gavin? The voice on the other end was soft, familiar in that gentle, sing-song way only one person in Sienna's family ever spoke. It's Lorraine, Sienna's mom. I didn't say anything right away. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, staring out the window as the ceiling fan hummed above me. I hope it's okay that I called, she continued. I wanted to say something. I think maybe we made a mistake. Still, I said nothing. I know what happened with the trip hurt you, she said. And I want you to know it wasn't supposed to be that way. We thought, she paused, searching for the words. We just thought maybe you were busy with the dojo and Dylan wanted one last trip before everything changes. And Pete, well, he just wanted it to be like it used to be. Right, I said quietly. She rushed to fill the silence. But we never meant to exclude you. Honestly, I thought Sienna had talked to you about it. If I had known, you felt pushed out, I swear we would have done things differently. Her voice was kind, almost pleading, but there was something else beneath it too, something fragile and uncertain. I leaned against the counter and finally asked, would you have called me if I hadn't stepped back? There was a pause. I don't know, she admitted. But I'm calling now. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to her. Yeah, that's what I thought. Gavin, she said, and now her voice cracked, just slightly. We do care about you. I care about you. You've been such a help to this family. More than you know. More than you know. That was the phrase that landed hardest. Because that's what I'd always been to them, helpful. Not loved. Not chosen. Just useful. I appreciate the call, I said finally. Really? I do. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. Good. Good. Maybe sometime we could, eh? I have to go, I said, cutting her off gently. Take care, Lorraine. I ended the call before she could say anything else. She was kind. She always had been. But I heard it in her voice, this wasn't about understanding. It was about control slipping. It was about comfort being disrupted. It was about the machine missing a cog. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one rushing to fix it. I stood there for a while, letting the silence fill the space she left behind. Because kindness offered too late isn't the same as love. It's a correction. A repair attempt. A patch on a hole that's been leaking for years. And I wasn't going back just because the floor got wet. A week after Lorraine's call, I found myself sitting on the back porch in the early morning light, coffee in hand, phone face down on the table. The spring air was still cool, the kind that makes you breathe a little deeper. The silence felt different now. Not like something was missing, but like I'd finally turned off a background noise I'd learned to live with. There were messages waiting on my phone. I knew that without checking. Sienna had sent a few over the past couple of days. Some short, some long, some written like nothing was wrong. She told me about Dylan's latest project, about her shift at the hospital, about how she missed me. She never mentioned the cabin, never said the words. She walked around our shared space like everything was just slightly out of place. Like this version of me, the one that didn't rush in to solve, to soothe, to carry, was temporary. Like I'd snap back to normal any minute now. But I wasn't going back. Couldn't. Because somewhere in the stillness of that desert trip, somewhere between the empty trail and the greasy diner booth. I had finally faced the truth. I hadn't been chosen. I had been convenient. Her family hadn't loved me. They had leaned on me. And when I stepped away, what came rushing in wasn't grief or worry. It was alarm. Not at losing me, but at losing what I did. The help. The hands. The quiet labor that made things easier for everyone else. Even her mother's apology, gentle as it was, wasn't about inclusion. It was about restoring balance. I had mistaken presence for belonging. But the moment I stopped doing, their affection had shifted, faded, fractured. And Sienna, God, I loved her, still did. But love isn't enough when one person is always the bridge and the other never crosses it. That evening, I came home to find her folding laundry on the couch, a show playing low on the TV. She looked up when I came in, gave me a soft smile. "Dinner's in the oven," she said. "I made that pasta you like. I hung my jacket by the door. Thanks." We moved around each other like two people in a house we both used to recognize. After we ate, she sat beside me, close but careful, like she was waiting for a cue. "I talked to my mom," she said eventually. "She told me she called you." I nodded. "She said you were polite, quiet, but different." I looked at her. "I am different." Sienna frowned. "Are we okay?" Could have lied. Could have smoothed the edges. But I didn't. "I don't know," I said. "I don't know if I can keep giving like I did and still survive it." She looked down at her hands, twisting the edge of her sleeve. "I never asked you to." "You didn't have to," I said. That was the problem. The silence between us stretched, heavy but honest. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know if we'd make it. But I did know this. I wasn't going to beg for space in a family that only noticed me when I disappeared. I wasn't going to trade my worth for their comfort ever again. And maybe, for the first time, I was finally home with myself.